Namaste and welcome to Why Did We Celebrate Diwali? A series exploring the profound reasons behind each day of this festival. Though Diwali has recently passed, it's never too late to deepen our understanding of its rich, multi layered significance. In the last episode, we explored why Dhanteras or Dhanvantari Trayodashi celebrated, its connection with winter is coming, and its connection with the Lord of Health, Dhanvantari, who taught us that health is one's true wealth. Today's episode takes us into the dramatic story from our ancient past. We will talk about Narak Chaturdashi, a day often associated with light and liberation. But what does Narak, meaning hell, have to do with Diwali? We will explore the powerful legend of Narkasur, a ruler whose journey from noble king to tyrant led to his downfall at the hands of Krishna and Satyabhama. And as we peel back the layers of this tale, you will find surprising connections with global traditions like Halloween and the ancient Gaelic festival of Samhain or Samhain. Through these stories, we'll discover how Narak Chaturdashi became not just a day of light, but also a day for honoring our ancestors, a day rich with spiritual and historical resonance. So let's begin. Narkasur, once a powerful and respected ruler, hailed from Mithila, a region around today's Bihar and Nepal. He wielded significant influence in the northeast, ruling Pragjotishpur, the ancient kingdom that aligns with the present day Assam. His impact was so profound that even the Kamrup dynasties, such as the Varman dynasty, Mlecha dynasty, Pal dynasties, all claimed that Narkasur was their ancestor. His lineage extended to his son Bhagadatta, a formidable warrior who fought in the Mahabharata on the Kaurava side and ultimately fell to Arjun. Through his victories, Bhagadatta's influence had expanded across northern India as well as western Asia, a testament to this family's enduring legacy across the north belt of India, east as well as west. Initially, Narakasura's rule was just and wise. However, his friendship with Banasur, a demonic ally, led him down a dark path. Narkasura's tyranny grew, and as he began conquering lands and taking captive thousands of women, capturing over 16,000 of them as trophies, his infamous acts peaked when he stole the earrings of Aditi, the mother of the gods, inciting Lord Krishna and Satyabhama, who was Aditi's relative, to confront him. This act of defiance against celestial beings marked the final straw. In the battle that ensued, Krishna defeated Narkasura's powerful commander Mura, earning him the title Murari, which literally means enemy of Mura. Eventually, Krishna and Satyabhama defeated Narkasura, freeing the woman he had imprisoned. It is said that as a gesture of honor and respect, Krishna married these 16,000 women to restore their societal standing. To this day in Goa, Narkasur's effigy is burned, a tradition that has persisted even through Portuguese conquests and forced religious conversions. Isn't it fascinating? These customs of Narak Chaturdashi weave together a rich tapestry of history, marking it as not just a festival but a celebration passed down through millennia, preserving the story and moral lessons from a time long past. In West Bengal on this day, families light 14 lamps to honor 14 generations of their forefathers. This practice involves invoking not only immediate ancestors but also higher divine beings, the Vasus, the Adityas, and the Rudras, who oversee different elements of nature and aspects of life. You must have heard that Hindus celebrate or honor or worship 33 crore gods. 33 Koti Dev. Not true. It's not 33 crore. Koti as a word also means revered or hugely revered. And 33 comes from 8 Vasus, 12 Adityas, 11 Rudras, and 2 Ashwin Kumars. So total 8 plus 11 plus 12 plus 2 means 33. And that 33 Koti or 33 most revered ones. Unfortunately, Koti also means crore, and therefore people confuse it with 33 crore gods. The Vasus, the Adityas, and the Rudras are also worshipped along with the 14 ancestors on this very day of Narak Chaturdashi. This practice of setting fireworks or lighting Ulka Danam originated from this very day, serving as a symbolic way of showing light and guiding ancestral spirits back to their southern home. The term Ulka means fireball, suggesting that the original intent of fireworks was not to create noise but to offer a visual, directional tribute to the ancestors, guiding them back to their home in the south. Interestingly, this aspect of Narak Chaturdashi, wherein it is believed that our ancestors visit us over this very specific auspicious day and that they are sent back to their homes in south by directing them in the direction through Ulka Danam or through fireballs or light, bears a lot of resemblance to traditions seen worldwide, such as Halloween. Certain Celtic festivals and Gaelic post harvest celebrations like Samhain also honored spirits and ancestors around the same time of the year. Families in Ireland and Scotland would light bonfires to guide spirits back to their world and offer food cakes to honor them, a practice that resonates with Diwali's tradition of lighting lamps. Also, in the Hindu tradition, Pindadan, the offering of rice balls with ghee and sesame seeds, is performed during Pitru Paksh, a 16-day period preceding Diwali, as an homage to one's ancestors. As Christianity picked up, the early Christians adapted many elements of paganism. Ancient pagan rituals often remained within Christian culture as aspects of custom and community with very little alteration. Hence, the pagan post harvest pre winter celebrations like Samhain turned into All Souls Day or All Hallows Day or All Hallows Eve, and that eventually turned into Halloween. Isn't it fascinating? The light we offer on Diwali isn't just about dispelling darkness, it's an act of reverence for those who came before us. It's a way of preserving the connection to our heritage, honoring the deep seated relationships that have guided our lives across generations. Yes, Diwali isn't meant to be a festival of noise. Any excessive firecracker sounds are more recent additions. Traditionally, Diwali was always about light, symbolically and literally illuminating the way for ancestors, celebrating life, and driving away darkness. It's a festival that's been celebrated in this light focused manner not just for centuries but for thousands of years, echoing across generations and cultures alike despite the geographical distance. As we approach the last episode of the series, we'll explore Padwa, a day of marital unity, family reunions, and the annual homecoming of King Bali. How does Padwa connect with the lives of ancient seafarers and traders, and why does it remind us to value our relationships? Join us next time for this beautiful finale to our Diwali journey. Till then, namaste.